Habari gani, karibuni, asanteni nasi. You know, one quick thing I forgot to do, and I'm going to do that quickly because we are in community, is put up something. Just bear with me real quick. I need to put up an image. Just bear with me. Bear with me, y'all. Sorry about that. There we go. All right. So, Mama Marimba, I remember, you know, we talked about this Cecil Rhodes and his quote, and I guess I can start with that and we'll move up to the conversation. Let's, you know, but no. We cannot prioritize Cecil Rhodes before our ancestors. So let me center myself back and Africanize this situation. All right. So we're going to invite our ancestors today to sit with us, to ground us in our Africanness, to guide us as we have this conversation so that it is grounded in service to our community and in continuing the work that they started towards our African sovereignty. We appreciate everything that they did for us, and we ask that we do not abandon their goal to achieve that African sovereignty, that we do not continue to be complacent, and that we use this book that we will be talking today as a guide to impact our actions and not just to read for the sake of reading. So, Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. All right, so the name is Nduku. I am the host on Kumbukeni. I am a Mwana Ubuntu. And today I'm joined by a fellow Mwana Ubuntu. Hold on, bear with me. Sorry. Sorry about that. Yes. Today I'm joined by a fellow Mwana Ubuntu. And what that means, that's a child of Ubuntu, a person of Ubuntu, someone of that culture, that principle. And Mama Marimba Ani, I call her, is an elder in our community, first of all. To me, she's a fellow African warrior woman. And we've talked about African warrior women on Kumbukeni several times. That's who she is to me. She is my big sister, and more than that, my elder. She has done the work that is going to help us and that I believe is very important to guide us to the next phase. And the time has come for us to move on to that next phase. And we're going to use this opportunity. Yes, Ashe. We're going to use this opportunity as a moment to take the lessons so that we can start the work towards that next phase. Asante sana, Mama Marimba Ani. Karibu.
Karibu.
Asante. So I'm going to start with a few quotes that you've shared with me of Nana John Henry Clarke. And I thank you for always sharing these wisdoms. And then I will give the description of Yurugu and Asili, and then we'll take it from there, Mama Marimba Ani. So one of the quotes, if it's not an instrument of your liberation, throw it away. Nana John Henry Clarke. The second one, it's not your job to seek to become a part of your master's apparatus. You will only succeed in re-enslaving yourself. Your job is to destroy that apparatus. Nana John Henry Clarke. I share these two quotes to ground us today, for us to be intentional, all of us who are watching this, Wana Ubuntu, to be intentional about the purpose of this gathering today. All right. One great thing Mama Marimba Ani does in the book, for those of you who will get the book, for those of you who have gotten the book and have read it or haven't, it's time to get it off the bookshelf, because I said the time is now to move to the next phase. And whether you're ready or not, we need to move to the next phase. Is at the beginning, she gives descriptions of these terms. For a lot of you, in the United States removed from our culture, and on the continent removed from our culture, these terms were foreign to you. For some of us, these terms were not foreign, right? Utamaroho is not foreign to me because I speak Kiswahili. I've been raised in that culture. Yurugu was foreign to me. Asili is not foreign to me because I speak Kiswahili. I've been raised in that culture, so I knew what this was. But a lot of you don't, and a lot of you didn't when you first encountered these words. And I'm grateful that our mama gave the descriptions before you even get into the book. And I ask you first, when you start reading the book, read through the descriptions twice, at least. Twice. And then always come back to them as you're reading the book if you feel like you're lost and you don't remember what it was. Yurugu. Yurugu is a being in Dogon mythology, which is responsible for disorder in the universe. This is a being conceived in denial of the natural order, which then acts to initiate and promote disharmony in the universe. In African cosmology, such a being is deficient in spiritual sensibility, is perpetually in conflict, is limited cognitively, and is threatening to the well-being of humanity. If I was to describe what the book Yurugu is about in a nutshell, that's what I would say the book is about. And so Mama Marimba Ani takes that description and breaks it down in different areas of our being and shows how it shows up in the different areas of our being and their being. That's what the book is about. Asili, the logos of a culture within which its various aspects cohere. It is the development, the germ, the seed of a culture. It is the cultural essence, the ideological core, the matrix of a cultural entity, which must be identified in order to make sense of the collective creations of its members. And this is the reason why we read the book, to be able to identify it. Mama Marimba Ani, why did you write Yurugu? What called you to write it, and what was the process of writing the book? You say in the acknowledgement, you mention fulfilling the oath that you took by having been born African to avenge the spirits of our ancestors. Let's talk about the process, Mama.
Okay, what happens is that when you are in the academy, you are encouraged to think in a particular modality, and encouraged to study and write on things which are considered to be quote unquote academic. And if people look up that word in the dictionary, in English Euro dictionary, it will come up that to be for something, when something is academic, it's like not important. It's not really consequential. And for us, everything that we do needs to be something which intentionally impacts on the well-being of our people, on the political power of our people, the political status of our people. And let me say what I mean by political. to be political is when you have identified yourself with a group, or in our case, a family, a race family, to which you are loyal, and for which you are seeking victory in a war. It is to think in terms of war. And so what that means is that it is identifying the enemy.
Yeah.
The enemy is one or those who act against the interest of your family,
Mm-hmm.
of your people, of your group. That's thinking politically. So when people say, um, "Oh, that's a good white person. She was good to me. She did this for me. He did that for me." Um, they're not thinking politically because they are thinking as an individual. They are
Yeah.
thinking. They're not thinking in terms of group interest. So we have to think, and that's what Baba Omawale did for us. That was so excellent. Was he always thought in terms of, well, what does it mean for the majority or the
Yes.
masses of our people? Not just, oh, we can get, if we demonstrate here, if we do that, um, we can get a few jobs for a few people that they consider to be now qualified. That's not um, strategic, effective
Mm-hmm.
political behavior for African people. Um, I did Yurugu because I wanted to, two things. I wanted to do something which would service us in behalf of the victory that we have to achieve in war with the enemy. I also um, wanted to. I felt that we needed to be able to see beyond the mask that they wear, and the mask is supported by, constructed by their the theoretical framework that they um, force on us in the academy. And by the way, that begins with nursery school.
Yep.
Um, it of course becomes more and more intense and more developed as you move to so-called higher and higher, in quotes, forms of education. Um, but it begins, when we and Nana Amos points that out. I think when we put our children into quote unquote school as early as we can. So, when they're 3 and we're so proud of what it is that they're learning, um, they are and when those schools are the method that they're using
Mm-hmm.
the modalities that they're using, the images that they're using, the symbols that they're using. Um, they are all part of an intentional political assault against African people. We have not understood that, and I wanted Yurugu to help in exposing that. Now, to do that is not easy,
Yeah.
and I think that that's one of the reasons why the book to many is considered not easy. Is because what you have to do, or what I felt I had to do, was to deconstruct their how shall I put it, the conceptual framework
Mm-hmm.
that we are taught to take for granted from the time we are in nursery school.
Yeah.
Because embedded in that conceptual framework is the anti-African uh, assumptions
Mm-hmm.
that lead eventually to African menticide, as Bobby Wright put it. You see, it's that you have to get to the level of assumption, and that's not easy work. It goes beyond. We said in the '70s, I'm black and I'm proud, but I don't think we really understood what it meant for that to inform our political behavior. We didn't use culture in the way
Mm.
that we should have, which I want to acknowledge and refer the family to the work of Nana Amos Wilson,
Mhm.
who has a brilliant presentation, and I don't know the title of it,
I will share
but
it.
he's talking.
The one on culture. I'll share
Yes.
it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good.
Mm-hmm.
So that we can still have access to, which is wonderful. That there is a recording of it, and he's so clear in it. And by the way, we need to make sure that we archive these gems, so that we can use them in the future, and that we will have them in the future. That they won't disappear. So again, back to why I did Yurugu is and how I think people need to approach it and understand it is you see, there are two things. One that's important. You got to be able to identify the assumptions that a theory is based on. And we didn't do that, because what we were taught in the academy is um, that a theory is somehow um, a uh, a universal and objective truth. So there are certain concepts that Yurugu has used, and that Europeans have used in their in their academy. And one of them that is devastating for us is the concept of objectivity. And I talk about the myth of objectivity. The other is how they use universalism, because what they do is they present, and this happens in the academy, they present their views and their thoughts and their perspective as universal. And what that does is it masks their values. What they when I entered graduate school, one of there are certain courses that you have to take. So because I was supposed to be studying cultural anthropology, one of the classes was foundations of sociological thought, or we could say foundations of anthropological thought, or they might call it foundations of cultural thought. So you're sitting there, you got to have that, and you got to understand it. You got to take it in, and you think that what you are getting is some kind of absolute and, of course, valuable truth. But I realized as I was listening to the guy talk and lecture, and I'm taking notes. I don't want to miss anything. I'm taking everything down. And I look back at these notes and I realize what I'm learning is how they think and how they feel. So you really are what you're getting in what they call sociology is the European concept of society, of family. They will always begin by defining certain basic, elemental concepts. So you're getting their definition of family, but it's their definition, which embodies or reflects, I should say, their worldview, their way of being, their culture, and culture is ideology. Your culture should root you in an ideological, framework, and that's what you're getting. You're getting them in these courses, and these, you're not getting some kind of abstract, absolute, universally applicable truth. But I realized that, but how do you show it? How do you argue that? How do I make it useful for our people in war, so that it can help to determine strategy, because the whole thing that we do should be about should be strategic, and I think that's what 9 o'clock meant by if you can't use it for liberation. And I would say use it for African sovereignty. And I specifically say African, I qualify it because you can't understand what we mean by sovereignty by looking in the dictionary. And you shouldn't look in the dictionary for how they define culture to understand the importance of culture for us, because you won't get it. So definitions are very important, and I think, Sister Nduku, what you're referring to is the glossary in the beginning of the book, because how you define concepts and terms, that's going to determine where you go, where you can go, what you can do, what the intent is. The quote by which I discovered through the work of Ola Eshu in an article that he wrote for us in, I believe it was in our newspaper, The African World, The Ghost of Cecil Rhodes. It's an excellent quote, because you see, what we need more is what reveals them. You need the enemy revealed, and that's, the cover of the book YURUGU has this rather ugly being holding a mask. So it's like the mask is being taken off, and that's what we need. And I don't know. I'm just seeing that. I'm feeling, unfortunately, that our people we don't see through them.
No, we don't.
And that would bring us to the chapter 6 that talks about the rhetorical ethic, was a concept that I developed because I looked at the way in which they have one way that they talk to us. They want us to think. And then they've got another thing that they really believe. So, and that's why I called it's an ethical statement. It sounds like an ethical statement, but it's not really. Because ethics is supposed to be, about how you should behave, the best way to be. And they're not really interested in that. But they may talk about that. They may talk about brotherhood, humanitarianism, things like that, and doing what's good for everybody and so forth. But that's not, if you understand the Asili, then you know it's double talk. That's only rhetoric to fool us. And there is a quote, I know I have it in the book somewhere, I think, anyway, that Nana Francis Cress Welsing says the same thing. She said, we don't understand where they're coming from, and that's part of our vernacular in the African Black community in the States is where she or he is coming from, meaning what are they really about? And that's what I think the concept of Asili does, or that's what I wanted it to do, was to give us something that kind of decodes Their behavior decodes the culture.